What's going on, guys? Thrills in the block back again in the garage with the 77 C10 pickup truck. Today we're going to be focusing on getting our areas marked for cutting out the floor pans, cutting out this rocker panel here, the arch and the bed that needs to be fixed there, the arch on the passenger side right there, passenger side rocker panel, and the passenger side floor pan. There's quite a bit of marking to do. I'll probably clean up the floor after I mark everything and cut everything because there's just going to be dirt and junk and stuff falling all over the place. I might even put this thing on the lift to pick it up, make it a little bit easier to cut the floor. Not too worried about the bed arches, but that's the plan. I'm going to go ahead and get started so we can make some progress happen. All right, well, we got most of this area worked up back here. I did have to trim a little bit of the inside portion of the bed out because it was rusted. I'm not going to worry about replacing that because it's going to be hidden behind the outside. It'll be hidden behind the outside skin of the fender. But I want to get all that treated so we didn't have to deal with anything re-rusting through this panel we put on. So that's the story there. It looks like I'm going to have to replace this lower rear section back here. It's shot. It is just too bad to deal with. It's falling apart, and there's window screen and some kind of other mesh and bondo, and it's more than I can even try to fix. So I'm going to have to replace that lower section there. And before we move inside, we're going to talk about floor pans. So these floor pans came from Auto Body Panels, classic to current fabrication, made in the Motor City. So I think these are made in Michigan, I would assume, since that's Motor City. And here's their website there, phone number. So these are the floor pans, or this is one of the floor pans, driver's side, that came from them. Stamping looks pretty good. I'm gonna do some tweaking when you get it in there. It's a full pan. A lot of these stop like across where that seam is. So the good part is it is a full pan. It gets you to the transmission tunnel, up towards the firewall. So you've got the section where the firewall is there, and the outside lip. These aren't welded in completion or stamped in completion like some of the other panels. It's got a nice extended lip down there. So I'm hoping that because of this, it'll fit pretty well. Of course, I've got a small section. I'm basically going to go across here and up there, but you can see made in the USA. So always cool to support a local American business, and we'll see how well they fit. Surely they can't fit any worse than the stuff that you get made in China, and at least you're keeping the money on this side of the pond. With that said, I'm set the camera back up. I'm going to do some marking, and then we'll mark this pan, and maybe I'll mark the pan on the other side, and then we will go from there. And I think I got some floor braces too. Let me take a look. Yep, so here's a floor brace. And the floor brace is made in Taiwan. So, standard issue floor brace there. But they do make their own floor pans, so that's cool. Very cool. The gauge of the metal is about the same, maybe a little bit thicker than some of the other ones. So anyway, should work. I'll set this camera up. We'll get back to making this thing, get ready to go in there, because I got to fix that one and the one on that side, and then got to do the other bed side. But it won't be this big. It's only going to be the front half because that's where it was rusted at. We'll do the whole thing. Alright, got the floor cut out. I got to replace that brace obviously because more than half of it's gone. That section right there looks pretty good, so I'm just going to figure out how I'm going to get that brace in there. I have a slip over brace, so I should be able to slide it up in beside of what's left of there that's still salvageable. I'll probably cut most of that off flush at that line. Then we'll grab that brace right there and slide it up in there underneath that section of the floor, weld it to, yeah, something. Got to add something in there, probably weld it to. And then once we've got that done, we'll be ready to put our floor pan back in. Moving over to the passenger side of the truck, we're going to go ahead and get ready to cut this section of the floor out. Got the other side cut out. I'm going to get everything cut out, and then I'll start putting pieces back together. I'm going to cut along this line, cut up through here right beside the transmission tunnel, and then cut across here. Found a hole that was right there in the floor. Put a little bit of light under here so you guys can see a little bit better. So yeah, that hole, these holes right here, and that hole over there, that one, these, and of course this big one. Initially I thought I was going to be able to cut up on this side, but I found a couple small holes here. Hit it with the hammer and they quickly enlarge themselves, so we're going to go ahead and just cut past all of this area, all the way back over here to the trans tunnel. If you're working on your truck, one recommendation I do have, like, don't cut into your transmission tunnel unless you absolutely have to. And if you have to cut in your transmission tunnel, you should probably just replace the whole floor. Make your life a lot easier. So I'm just going to come along the side here. We'll cut this out. And I've got a full pan, so we'll do a 3/4 inch overlap probably on this one, and instead of doing a butt weld. That's just my choice on this particular truck. So if you're wondering what's going on, that's the deal. So go cut this out and cut this floor brace out, because it is definitely has seen better days, as you can see. So because of that, we're just gonna cut it all out. I'll put the new brace in and the new floor pan. And the side of this is actually in good shape, so that's cool. And then after we get that mocked up, I'm gonna tackle the rocker panels. we got the other side cut out over there. Came back to the driver's side. I went ahead and put a little bit of Rust-Oleum paint just to prime those surfaces that were untreated. Hit it with a wire brush and prime those up. And now I'm looking into this rocker panel. So instead of replacing the whole rocker, which I could do, this rocker's not in too bad a shape. The ender's pretty bad, you can see that, and then it was rotted on the outside, but I'm just going to cut a section out roughly about from here up to there where that little dip is. The rest of the truck's in good shape, so I'm not going to worry about going overboard with this, but just to give you guys an idea. So what I'm going to do is take my flap disc right here on my grinder. So Benchmark abrasives, they got some pretty cool products. And I'm going to strip down the areas that I'm going to cut out, or at least the ends of the areas. So I'll strip out this area over here, and then of course this side I've already cut, so I don't have to worry about that. My reason for that is this area that has a hole in it looked about like the size of that hole. Yeah, I got black finger on my paint. I mean, got black paint on my finger there. Anyway, that little hole right there and like this little hole, those were that small. When I hit them with the hammer, they became like that size. So I think we're good all the way through here. It looks pretty solid. You know, nothing too crazy. Just a little bit of surface rust back there. I'm not worried about that. But right in here is where I'm going to do my transition cut. So I'm going to just strip the paint back just to make sure there are no surprises, because sometimes you get little surprises hidden underneath the paint. And this truck has been repainted. You can see the original color is that lighter brown, and then that darker brown is the repaint color. Alright, I got that clipped out, did a little bit of trimming on my, this is a leftover rocker panel from when I did the other 78 C10 pickup. Silver and black one. If you guys haven't seen that, I'll put a link at the top of the screen. Just doing a little bit of test fitting here. I think this will work just fine. So I noticed that my angle here is not quite the exact same. I'm gonna come back and I'll trim this in some more across here. I'm just trying to get an idea on where I need to place this at before I trim it up. All right, I'm gonna be using my pneumatic nibbler to run this line down through here. Basically just because it's fast and quick and efficient. So I'm gonna show you what I do with the nibbler whenever I'm cutting something that needs to be trimmed and I can get it off the vehicle. This keeps you from making a mess all over your shop. So because the ejection port on the nibbler is at the front, there's the tool if you've not seen a pneumatic nibbler before. I'm going to point that ejection port down into the trash can so it kicks all those metal shards right into the waste basket instead of all over the garage. So I'll position this like so and you'll see how it works here in just a second. Okay guys, you saw me doing all this work over on this side of the truck, and my plan was to go ahead and get this, finish bracing this up. And yeah, there is a brace on the inside behind that part of the rocker, in case you're wondering. Go ahead and get the outer rocker on, fix the inner section of that rocker panel, and get the floor in. I was going to go ahead and cut the other side out. Let me show you what I found. So I was over here on this side and had marked up, as you can see, I got the floor cut. So I was going to come in here and cut this section of the rocker panel out. So I go ahead and get this rocker piece cut back in, get it fitted. And I was smelling gas. You see I swept the floor up, and there's a couple drips on the floor. So I'm not sure what the deal is, but this gas tank is leaking now. Yeah, it wasn't leaking before. This truck's been in here for several weeks. I talked to the block, and he said he didn't have any drips out of the truck until he had it up on jack stands, taking care of putting the transmission and the engine back in, and then it dripped for a couple days and it quit. Yeah, so I can't finish cutting out this rust or welding with gas leaking. I'm really glad that I spotted this before. It ended up being real bad because you see there's like grass and stuff up under there. Yeah, that could have been really bad. So typically I don't mind welding around a gas tank, provided it's not leaking, but because this one's leaking, now we're gonna pull this tank out of here. And looking at it, there's actually a big dent in the bottom of this tank right here. So they ran over something with the truck at some point in time, and you can see that big dent it put in there. So I'm guessing that it must have cracked the tank somewhere. It wasn't leaking real bad or at all until maybe the fuel level was high enough. It's kind of my thought. So a little bit of a setback. Didn't really have this in the budget or the plan to replace this tank, but we definitely can't work on the truck with a busted tank. So hopefully it's something simple. Maybe it's just a bad gasket or return line overpressure leaking, or just anything crazy, just for something simple maybe. But I'll probably end up putting a tank in this one. I put a tank in the 74 that I had several years ago. Wasn't too bad. It was leaking really bad though, because I think I filled it up and it leaked probably half the gas out. This one's roughly about half a tank, so maybe the same scenario here. Gas tanks were a lot cheaper 10 years ago though. So anyway, I'm gonna wrap up the video here, and we'll do another video of me pulling this tank out and inspecting to see what the deal is and what's causing the leak. I did not plan on having to stop here. Like I said, my plan was to get these floors and rocker panels and stuff back in so we could go to the rest of the welding. But sometimes that's just not how it goes. That's gonna wrap it up for this video. My name's Erwin. This is 3 Wheels in a Block, where we're giving back what time has taken away. We'll see you soon.